but there's something about a motorcycle, isn't there? It's not like a car. Oh no, you're out in it. The wind, the smells, the impending doom, especially when you decide to take a small, unassuming bike and point it at something called the Northeast Backcountry Discovery Route. Backcountry Discovery Route sounds rather grand, doesn't it? It conjures images of heroic explorers on massive, complicated machines. This, however, was to be a bit different, less heroic, perhaps more surprising. Vermont, in the late spring, it's green, very green, and it has these things called roads. I use the term loosely, of course. Some are paved, smooth, boring. Others are not. They're tracks, ruts, muddy bits. The sort of thing that makes you question your life choices and your choice of motorcycle. This particular adventure wasn't about outright speed or brute force. It was about something else entirely. Fitness, luck, stupidity, probably all three. The allure of the unknown path was strong. It whispers to you, come on, it says it'll be fun. Fun and adventure biking often translates to difficult and slightly terrifying, but that's the whole point, isn't it? If it were easy, everyone would do it, and it would be called commuting. We were aiming for something more, something memorable, something that would test both rider and, crucially, a very specific machine. A machine, some might say, was not entirely up to the job. How wrong they would be. This wasn't just a ride, it was an experiment. Could a simple, relatively inexpensive motorcycle cope with terrain designed to make big adventure bikes sweat? Could it deliver genuine thrills without 1,000 horsepower or 1 million rider aids? These were the questions. Southern Vermont held the answers, and a fair bit of emud. As it turned out, spoiler alert, the answers were rather pleasing and a bit mucky. Every great adventure needs a catalyst, a spark. Sometimes it's a lifelong dream or a midlife crisis. This time it was Abby. Abby is the girlfriend of my youngest son, Leo, and she's from California, which explains a lot. Sunshine, optimism, that sort of thing. She moved to New Hampshire in March in New Hampshire. Brave girl, clearly she possessed a certain adventurous spirit, perhaps. You just hadn't experienced a proper New England MUD season yet. Abby, you see, had bought herself a motorcycle, a brand new Triumph Speed 400, a rather smart little thing, actually. Good power, modern, all the bits you'd expect. And then she discovered the NBDR, the Northeast Backcountry Discovery Route, probably on the internet, where all dangerous ideas are born. She started talking about it. We should ride it, she'd say. And like a fool, I listened. The seed was planted, a very muddy seed. Now, I've been riding motorbikes for a fair few years, seen a few things fallen off a few times. The idea of tackling some of Vermont's less traveled paths wasn't entirely new, but doing it on something small, something sensible, that was the interesting bit. The NABDR is known for being a bit of a challenge in places. Not Everest, mind you, but enough to keep you on your toes, especially if your toes are on the foot pegs of a small, unassuming roadster. So the plan began to form loosely, very loosely. It wasn't one of those meticulously planned expeditions. No support trucks, no film crew. Sadly, just a man, a map, and a bike that belonged to my wife, Danny, as it happens, which added an extra frisson of peril. "Don't scratch it," she'd said. Famous last words. The inspiration was Abby's enthusiasm. The challenge was the NBDR, the bike. Well, that was the star of the show, or so it would prove, right? The bike. The Royal Enfield Hunter 350. It's not what you'd call a fire-breathing monster. It's more of a gently puffing kitten, an air-cooled 349 CCC single-cylinder engine producing a mighty 19 horsepower. Yes, you read that right. 19. My lawn mower is probably more powerful. It weighs about 400 pounds, which in bike terms is quite light. Good. The fuel tank holds 3.4 gallons. They say it'll do 250 miles. We'd see suspension over 5 inches at the front, 4 at the back, and not exactly motocross spec. This particular Hunter wasn't fresh out of the box. Oh no, it belonged to my wife Danny, and she managed to put 5,000 miles on it in 2 seasons. So it was running nicely, probably a bit too nicely for what I had in mind. It's a handsome little thing. though in a retro simple sort of way. No complicated electronics, no ride modes, just an engine, 2 wheels, and some handlebars. Proper old school, which as it turns out is no bad thing when the going gets tough or muddy or rocky, or all three at once. Some people, the sort who wear expensive gear and talk about G-outs, would scoff you're taking on the NBDR. They'd splutter into their artisanal coffee. You need a 12cce behemoth with panniers the size of small cars. Well, I say poppycock to that. Sometimes less is more, especially when you're trying to drag it out of a ditch. The Hunter's lack of intimidating power might just be its secret weapon. It encourages you to be delicate, to pick your lines rather than just grabbing a fistful of throttle and hoping for the best. The idea was to see if this simple machine could handle it. Could it be a genuine adventure bike despite its modest credentials? It's got that rugged, built-to-last feel of old Enfields, and axe handle simplicity. As I later described it, you feel like you could fix it with a hammer and some strong language, which is reassuring when you're miles from anywhere and the path ahead looks like it's been chewed up by a giant badger. This little Hunter was about to face its sternest tests, so the adventure began solo. Just me and the little Hunter. I pointed its single headlight towards southern Vermont. The plan was to pick up the official Neb Doctor route right from the Massachusetts border at a place charmingly named Goldmine Road. Sounds promising, doesn't it? Visions of riches, or at least a decent pub. In reality, it was just a road, a fairly unassuming gateway to the wilder bits, but every epic journey starts with a single step, or in this case, a single throttle twist and a slight sense of trepidation. The Vermont sections of the NEBDER, at least initially, were rather pleasant. Scenic, certainly. Rolling hills, quaint villages, the sort of thing you see on postcards. Varied too. A mix of tarmac gravel and the occasional slightly lumpy bit. Nothing too terrifying yet. It was a good way to get acquainted with the Hunter in this new role, to feel how it handled the loose surfaces, to remember that 19 horsepower requires a different riding style, more momentum, less stopping. It was, I suppose, a gentle introduction. A warm-up act. One thing that struck me about Vermont as I pottered along is that its wildest parts are often just reclaimed farmland. You'd see old stone walls disappearing into dense forest, a reminder that what looks like untouched wilderness was once fields and pastures cleared by hardy souls with axes and oxen. Now nature had taken it back. The forest that grew on what once was a farm, it adds a layer of history to the ride, a sense of connection to the past, as you bounce over rocks that were once part of someone's driveway. The Hunter just hummed along, unflustered, uncomplaining. It's not a bike that shouts about its abilities. It just gets on with the job quietly, efficiently. The lightweight was immediately noticeable, easy to maneuver even when the surface got a bit sketchy. It felt like a proper adventure, even on these early tamer sections. The air was fresh, the sky was blue mostly, and the promise of more challenging terrain lay ahead. This was just the beginning. Section 5, 200 miles of glorious and occasionally bumpy progress. That first day was a proper good run. I managed to clock up 200 miles on the little Hunter, which on some of those roads felt like 400. It wasn't about speed, you understand. The Hunter doesn't really speed, not in the modern license losing sense anyway. It was about covering ground, making progress, soaking it all in. And the Hunter, bless its little single cylinder heart, just kept on going like a faithful, slightly underpowered terrier. Always eager, I was kitted out for the occasion naturally. New Aero-stitched Darien suit, very smart, very functional, and a heated vest, because Vermont, even in late spring, can be a bit nippy, especially when you're puttering along at Hunter speeds. It's funny the things you appreciate on a long ride: comfortable gear, a bike that doesn't try to break your wrists, and the knowledge that even if you get a bit lost, you're probably having fun, or at least collecting a good story for the pub later. The official BDR route was nice. Yes, nice is the word. Perhaps a little nice for my liking. It's designed to be accessible, I suppose, for those big,
heavy adventure bikes, the ones with riders who look like they're about to storm a medieval castle. But I was on the Hunter, a nimble little thing, and I started to think, could it handle more? Could handle more? The answer obviously was yes to both. So a decision was made, time to deviate, time to seek out the rough stuff. This is where the real fun begins, isn't it? When you leave the marked path, when you consult the map and think, that looks interesting. Interesting on a map often translates to bloody difficult in real life, but that's the thrill, the challenge. The BDR was a good baseline, a starting point, but the Hunter felt capable of more, seemed almost bored, and I frankly was itching for something a bit more agricultural. Southern Vermont has plenty of that if you know where to look, and I did. Section 6, deviating for danger, Putney Mountain and Stratton Hills, treacherous charm right off the beaten BDR path. We went first up Putney Mountain Road. It has one of those brilliant signs, not recommended for trucks, buses, RVs, or trailers. Music to my ears, the BDR sensibly goes around it. Sensible is boring, we went up it. The Hunter, it just climbed like a little mountain goat, a slightly slow, slightly wheezy mountain goat perhaps. But a goat nonetheless. The surface was loose, rocky, in places the sort of thing that would have a big bike wallowing. The Hunter just picked its way through Marvelous. Then came Stratton Hill Road in a place called New Fane. This one was even better or worse, depending on your point of view. It was a proper rotted double track with another encouraging sign, not maintained in winter, which in Vermont means probably not maintained much in summer either. And it lived up to its reputation. Oh yes, it was rocky, it was steep, it was wet in places, and decidedly loose. This was a genuine challenge, of the kind that makes you sweat. Even with a heated vest, this was proper old school trail riding. No electronic aids to save you, just throttle control, balance, and prayer. The Hunter's lightweight was a massive advantage here. The Hunter just picked its way through Marvelous. Then came Stratton Hill Road in a place called New Fane. This one was even better or worse, depending on your point of view. It was a proper rotted double track with another encouraging sign, not maintained in winter, which in Vermont means probably not maintained much in summer either. And it lived up to its reputation. Oh yes, it was rocky, it was steep, it was wet in places, and decidedly loose. This was a genuine challenge, the kind that makes you sweat, even with a heated vest. This was proper old school trail riding, no electronic aids to save you, just throttle control, balance, and prayer. The Hunter's lightweight was a massive advantage here. If it started to go sideways, a quick dab of the foot could sort it. Try doing that on a 600-pound behemoth. You'd need a crane. The engine with its gentle power delivery was perfect. No sudden surges to break traction, just steady, relentless chugging. It was slow going, very slow. First gear mostly, but we were making progress upwards, onwards. These unmaintained roads are the hidden gems of Vermont. They test you, they test your bike, and they reward you with a real sense of accomplishment and usually some spectacular views. If you can stop shaking long enough to enjoy them, the Hunter 350, this little road bike, was taking it all in its stride. It was getting muddy, it was getting bounced around, but it never once felt out of its depth, which is more than I can say for myself on occasion, especially on the slippery bits. Section 7, the little Hunter that could, conquering challenges against the odds. So how did the little Hunter 350 actually perform when the going got properly tough? In a word, brilliantly. Its lightweight, as I've said, was a huge plus. You could flick it around obstacles, muscle it through tricky sections. The manageable power, all 19 of those rampant horses, was a blessing on loose, steep climbs. You don't want a fistful of uncontrollable torque, you want gentle persuasion, and the Hunter delivered exactly that. It just kept gripping, kept chugging, kept finding a way. Then there's its build. It feels robust, solid, that axe handle simplicity I mentioned. There's not much to go wrong, and if it did, you feel you could bodge or repair. It inspires confidence, a different kind of confidence to a big, powerful bike. Not the confidence that you can conquer anything through sheer force, but the confidence that you can probably wiggle your way through or pick it up easily if you fail, and that on a tricky trail is worth its weight in gold or at least dry socks. I even found myself thinking anybody can ride a Hunter like a hero. It's so unintimidating, so forgiving. It doesn't punish your mistakes harshly. It just encourages you to try again, to have another go. This is a massive contrast to some of the larger adventure bikes. They can be fantastic, but they can also be terrifying. One wrong move on a steep, rocky descent with 500 pounds of metal beneath you, well, it doesn't bear thinking about the Hunter. You just pick it up and carry on. And what about on the normal roads? The bits between the gnarly sections, while on Route 30 along the West River, I saw just under 65 miles per hour on the clock. It wasn't exactly straining at the leash, but it was keeping up comfortable enough, not a sports bike clearly. But then it's not meant to be. It's a Hunter. It hunts for adventure at its own pace. And on this trip, it was proving to be a remarkably effective predator of bad roads. This little bike wasn't just coping, it was excelling in its own quiet, unassuming way. Section 8, enter Abby and her Triumph, a tale of two 40s and a rather large mud bog. Now I should mention Abby again, and her Triumph, Speed 400, because she was part of the preamble to this solo knee BDR escapade. Her bike, the Triumph, was kitted out with Metzeler Sportec M 9RR tires, sporty grippy on tarmac. Perhaps not their first choice for serious MUD plugging, but Abby, bless her Californian heart, was game for anything. We'd done some riding together in Vermont before I set off on my own. Me on the Hunter, her on the Speed 400, a tale of 240s, you might say. Both small capacity modern classics, but with different approaches. One memorable pre-trip excursion involved Putney Mountain, yes, that road again, and a rather substantial MUD bog, the sort of bog that looks deceptively shallow until you're in it, up to your axles. Abby on her Triumph with those sporty tires gave it a valiant effort. There was much spinning, much flinging of mud, much laughter, the Hunter with its slightly more all-round tires, and my expert guidance also found it challenging. It was a good reminder that sometimes enthusiasm outweighs